welcome to Korea Today, brought to you live from Seoul.
Pyongyang finally breaks its silence after ignoring communication efforts by Seoul, putting full blame on South Korea for the canceled inter-Korean talks.
And the most disappointed are the South Korean companies at the Kaesong Industrial Complex. We have more coming up in the headlines.
And unhappy faces are spotted on the owners of small and medium-sized businesses here in Korea. I'll tell you why on In Print.
With stalled inter-Korean talks between the two Koreas, is there a chance or a hope for the separated families? We'll see what other options they have.
Also on Korea Today, a school renowned for architectural design, Kookmin University, gives one of its buildings a modern new look. We take a look at the newly renovated site. Hand in hand, father and daughter take a trip to the area of Yangpyeong, where tractor rides and bare-hand fishing fun awaits live on this Thursday, June 13, 2013.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And thank you for joining us on Korea Today.
Thank you for tuning in. You're joining us on Tano. Tano is a traditional Korean holiday that's also celebrated in North Korea. It's celebrated on the 5th day of the 5th month of the lunar calendar. And traditionally, women wash their hair in changpo water. And changpo is a special type of plant to give the hair a beautiful
that bright shine, right?
Exactly. And women used to also, and still to this day, ride big swings. And when I say swings, I'm not talking about those little ones in the playground, but these swings are humongous, gigantic, enormous, these big swings. It's quite a sight.
I couldn't have said it any better. It's not those simple playground swings. They're, I would say, a good 15 meters up in the air, or about 10 meters or so. And these women, they ride them like professionals. It's almost like watching a show in a circus.
Right, and especially in their hanbok, it's just beautiful.
It is
beautiful. We're going to have a peek into that
in
one of our video clips, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we'll go to Nahyun-kyung for a check on the day's headlines.
North Korea has weighed in about the canceled inter-Korean talks for the first time since they were called off. On Thursday, Pyongyang's Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of Korea blamed the collapsed talks on the South Korean government, saying they were canceled due to Seoul's quote-unquote arrogant interference and deliberate bust-up schemes. Pyongyang added it will not tolerate any provocative behavior from Seoul. Now, and on the day of what would have been the first government-level inter-Korean meeting in years, North Korea cut off border communications with Seoul. On Wednesday, South Korea's unification minister, however, said there's still hope.
I see this as one of the pains in stepping towards new inter-Korean relations. In order to do so, North Korea must also show sincerity towards the matter.
Meanwhile, a senior official at the presidential office says in order to sustain improved inter-Korean relations, North Korea's wrongdoing must first be corrected. The official rubbished claims by some North Korea watchers that both Koreas are responsible for the cancellation of talks, saying that will let North Korea get away with its wrongdoings. The cancellation of the inter-Korean meeting came as a disappointment for many, but the most despondent are the South Korean business owners at the temporarily shuttered joint inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex.
South Korean resident company owners who are looking forward to the normalization of the complex through inter-Korean talks are torn up. We urge North Korea to come back to the government-level talks for resuming operations. We also urge the South Korean government to try its best to hold the talks in order to lessen the burden on the business owners.
And Hyundai Asan, the organizer of the suspended inter-Korean tours to Mount Kumgang Resort, also expressed disappointment but added it will continue to work toward resuming tours. Tours to Mount Kumgang in North Korea were halted after a North Korean soldier shot dead a South Korean tourist in 2008. Wednesday was the third day of a four-day government inquiry session at the National Assembly. Lawmakers asked the cabinet about the government's so-called economic democratization policies aimed at creating a fair business environment. At the session, Prime Minister Chung Hong-won said he will order the Fair Trade Commission to look into some of the reported cases of unfair business practices. Today, lawmakers will focus on education, culture, and social affairs. Some of the topics expected to cause heated debate include how to deal with Japan's distortion of history and preventing sexual assault cases in the nation. Prosecutors are planning to expand their investigation into the recent corruption case in the nation's nuclear industry. The Busan District Public Prosecutor's Office has reportedly obtained hard evidence that 7 officials from 3 organizations met on a regular basis to fabricate documents. The 3 organizations are cable manufacturer JS Cable, Sehan TP, a quality evaluation company, and state-funded Korea Electric Power Corporation's affiliate, KEPCO Engineering and Construction. The prosecution is said to be adding more investigators to the team to thoroughly probe the case. Last month, 2 of the nation's 23 reactors were suspended after they were found to have used parts with fake quality certificates.
And good morning, everyone. As the meeting room at the Grand Hilton Hotel closes its doors without ever hosting that inter-Korean talk, the newspapers have images reflecting this, and we will go ahead and begin with Gyeongyang Shinmun. On that note, the headline underneath the image reads, South-North channels cut again. Seoul government says no plans for a revised proposal. Now, the article goes on to say that Seoul's liaison officials at the truce village of Panmunjom reached out to its northern counterparts yesterday, once at 9 in the morning and again before closing time at 4 p.m., to which they received no answer, marking a return to stalled relations after there had been some hope for a full week. And it does cite the Unification Ministry as saying that the government currently has no plans to reach out to revive the talks, nor plans to make strides toward reopening the Kaesong Industrial Complex, while adding that the door of dialogue is still open, as is Seoul's will to salvage the relations. And over at Chungang Daily, it also has a similar image. We'll go ahead and take a quick look at it. The image title reads, Signboard for Inter-Korean Talks comes down. And as you can see, photojournalists over there snapping away as cleanup crews tear down the last of that meeting room. The hotel, of course, had swiftly prepared for the now called off occasion, and the Unification Ministry has said that it will pay a cancellation fee to the hotel. As you can see, 동아일보 also has a similar image there. Scooting over to 조선일보 now, we'll go ahead and take a look at this headline. Some in Chinese military say, let's lower defense treaty level with North Korea. This Chinese character is Kyok, as we have been talking a lot about the level of relations, I guess, in this case. And the newspaper reports that in the midst of shifting attitudes toward the North in China, military authorities there are also re-examining the possibility of revising Beijing's military treaty level with Pyongyang and also to enter into an equal relationship with Seoul. It's hearsay at the moment, as Joseon cites an unnamed ruling party lawmaker who said that he or she heard from a high-ranking South Korean military personnel that during his or her China visit, he or she had heard such sentiments that the article says had been around for years, going on to say that these Chinese military authorities have acknowledged that unification between the two Koreas is bound to happen, and that too under Seoul's lead. So some surprising indications there, and the image meanwhile shows an aerial shot of the crackdown on the Turkey protests. So we'll leave that there for now and turn over over to Korea Economic Daily. Not too long ago, we told you about the government's roadmap to expand part-time or hourly jobs here in Korea to achieve a 70% employment rate. And that plan has apparently incited some unhappy feelings on the part of small and medium-sized companies. The main headline here reads, SMEs say first fill our 250,000 unfilled jobs. And SMEs are wondering why 6 trillion won of precious taxpayers' money, that's about 5.3 billion US dollars, have been earmarked to create these jobs when they are facing a labor shortage. The paper cites a Ministry of Employment and Labor study that found that unfilled jobs at SMEs accounted for nearly 92% of unfilled jobs nationally. It also has one researcher saying that the government plan as is could create more burden for these SMEs with requirements like including holiday work and overtime work, and that the government should have helped SMEs fill their hundreds of thousands of jobs first before pouring funds into creating part-time jobs. And that wraps your look at what's in print on this Thursday. Here comes your market action from Wednesday.
And staying on the topic of North Korea, anticipation was high that the resumption of reunions for families separated during the Korean War would top the agenda for the now canceled inter-Korean talks. I have Arirang Song Ji-sun here with me, who had a chance to talk to some of the family members. So Ji-sun, what was their general reaction to the news?
Well, we're talking about some 74,000 people who are lined up to actually meet their families who are separated in North Korea. And they were wishing to get back with their families, a reunion that was going to take place after 3 years of halt in the inter-Korean reunion that's been stopped back in 2010. And actually, I got to talk to them in a session held by the Korea's Unification Ministry and the Korea Red Cross. Now they hold a session to explain them how they're going to be able to file or apply for the reunion process, as well as they also teach you how they can keep in touch with their families in North Korea through private channels. And so exactly how many people are we talking about for the reunion, and how can they actually keep in touch with their families in North Korea? Let's take a look. For the thousands of Korean families separated by the Korean War, Wednesday was a day for renewed hope as the two Koreas were to meet for the first time in years. The resumption of family reunions was high on the agenda, and many had speculated that the two Koreas were most likely to reach agreement on the subject of reunions, as it's a humanitarian issue. But that hope dimmed when preliminary talks broke down on Tuesday night because the two sides weren't able to agree on the rank of the delegations for Wednesday's talks.
We just heard the news on Wednesday, and it was so disappointing. I've already tried other ways of keeping in contact with my family in North Korea. I once even passed a letter to an American envoy entering Pyongyang, hoping it'd be delivered. But the address for my family there did not exist.
The last time there were reunions for separated families was back in November 2010 at the tourist resort of Mount Kumgang in North Korea. Now, the clock is ticking for the people hoping to see their families one last time, as over 80% of them are 70 years old or older. Nearly half of those who filed for reunions have already passed away. The list of people waiting for reunion is long. Given the circumstances, age is a major criteria when candidates for the reunions are selected. Older applicants whose family members have been confirmed as alive in the North are given first priority. For the rest of those who wait, in the meantime, there are other options. These include exchanging video or written letters through unofficial channels and arranging reunions in a third country. The South Korean Unification Ministry subsidizes the travel expenses for people who choose the latter, but people say it's not an easy option.
It's not easy for us to afford the trip, nor will it be easy for us to travel at our age. But we want to know whether our families are alive and where they are now. That's all we want.
Seoul's immediate goal is to establish a regular cycle of reunions. And as in the past, the venue for these events will most likely be the tourist complex on Mount Kumgang, which is capable of accommodating hundreds of families from the two sides.
The family members who have been separated are old, and about 3,000 to 4,000 applicants die each year without getting to meet their families one last time. So the most important thing is to set up a system that allows these elderly separated family members to reunite with their families on a regular basis. But in order for that to happen, the two Koreas must meet for talks so they can work out the details.
So no inter-Korean talks, no family reunions is basically what it is. But what a disappointing moment for those who were really looking forward to meeting their relatives for the first time in about more than half a century, actually.
Right, about 60 years to be exact, and most of them are aged between like 70 to 90 years old,
Right.
and they haven't seen their family for that many years. And what they really want to know is whether their families are alive or where they actually live, so they can actually send letters or actually know whether they're alive or dead. And most of them want to know whether they should hold memorial ceremonies like a lot of other Koreans do. And in fact, if there's no talk between the two Koreas to resume the reunions, the Korea's Red Cross nor the Unification Ministry can push forward with the remaining procedures because they cannot fine-tune the details of the members or the numbers of the participants, nor the routes or the venue for that matter. And talking about the venue, we also have to keep in mind that Mount Kumgang's tourism project must also be resumed because that's where the reunion is going to be held, as it did in the past reunions.
But the selection process, you say, is extremely competitive. How competitive are we talking about here?
Well, the official at the Korea's Red Cross also actually said it's just like winning a lottery. It's 0.14% because we're talking about 100 members out of the 74,000. And actually, even if you were selected to be a candidate of the reunion, you still have to qualify. And that means that your family members in North Korea must be confirmed as alive. And that news must be confirmed from the Pyongyang. So if your family members are not alive in North Korea, obviously you cannot participate, and that's why they actually select like twofold of the original members. Let's say they actually named 300 people to actually send 100 people to North Korea for the reunions because they have to confirm those data from North as well.
And in the video you mentioned that there are alternative routes, but how effective or feasible are they?
Well, if we get back to the numbers, there has been 17,000 people who actually got to exchange letters in written form or videos with their families in the north through these private channels. We're talking about actually private agency that has been certified by the Unification Ministry, and they actually have to pay on themselves, but the Korean government also subsidizes that process. And when you make a trip to a third country to meet your family there, you could also get reimbursed for that expense as well. And actually, that also is affected by the inter-Korean relationship because when the two Koreas are in a sour relationship, Pyongyang actually reinforces its monitoring on the borderline activities, whereas if a North Korean try to travel abroad to meet their family members, they are going to be monitored by the administration. So it's actually always better to have a closer relations with North Korea to actually have more reunions as well as in public or private sectors.
Right. So inter-Korean, the family members are expecting or hoping to see inter-Korean meetings take place.
Right, and actually it was going to be held in Chuseok this year in the fall when it was if the talks took place. But actually now we cannot be sure because we don't know when the talks going to be resumed.
Right, so we'll have to see and see what happens and hope for the best for the separated families as well. All right, thank you very much, Ji-sun, for your report today. Appreciate it. And still ahead on Korea Today, Kookmin University here in Korea is said to be well known for its history and design, and to suit its name is a new building on campus that just received a makeover. What modern look has it taken on? We take you there to check it out, so stay tuned.
Now, on Tuesday evening, we saw the high-level inter-Korean talks being called off less than 24 hours before the actual scheduled meeting, and it actually had an effect on some of the stocks in the local markets.
That's right. The Korean stock markets have been under some pressure due to the unpredictable North Korea, a weakening yen, and a host of other factors. And to tell us more, we're now joined by Professor Ernst Lee from Hanyang University. Good morning. Good to have you with us this morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's start with the latest developments with North Korea. Some stocks have obviously been on a seesaw ride, and some go up and some go down. Yes, according to the developments. But now, am I fair in making this assessment that investors, by and large, ignore these developments?
Well, I think the current talks between North and inter-Korean talks have to some extent has an influence to Korea's stock market. But for the stock market players, they are more focused on what's happening in the U.S. When U.S. government will activate their exit strategy is on the highlight. So that we can have a hint from FOMC meeting that is scheduled to be held on 18 and 19. So it's depending on the more global issues than inter-Korea issues. I think in inter-Korea issues, that's been there for a long time, and it's been, to some extent, has been discounted to Korea discount already.
Right. It's already been reflected. Many credit ratings agencies seem to agree that that factor has already been reflected in the Korean stock markets.
I think that's an excellent question, actually. Moody's and S&P has officially announced that unless otherwise there is nationwide provocation, they have no intention to change Korea's rating. And then this is course of the work, and this kind of inter-Korean talks, trial and maybe this connection has been already reflected Korea discount, actually.
Well, but it seems our credit rating might be safe, but Samsung Electronics is seeing a hit over here. The shares for Samsung Electronics fell for the 5th straight session, and that amounted to almost a $20 billion loss in market value. Now, what could be the reasons behind this?
Well, there can be many reasons, but from my personal observation, I think foreign investors look at the more bigger picture than Samsung Electronics company itself. The structure of the Korean stock market, which is the top 100 Korean companies, out of Samsung and Hyundai Mobile's combined, which takes more than 50% of top 100 companies' revenue. Actually, 97 companies, they have been suffering in terms of net revenue, losing revenue over 5 years by minus 36%. So, it's more structural problem. And second, people are waiting for the time that when U.S. government will activate their exit strategy, which means, consumers may not be able to buy more Galaxy 4. They have bought enough Galaxy 4. And that will give more impetus to emerging markets, and which will give sluggish mood to export of emerging market countries. And Korea typically is a country depending on export. So I think, it's not just a small portion of Samsung Electronics, but foreign investors are looking at more structured problem of this Korea stock market.
Right. Let's talk about this Vanguard fund that's been selling Korean stocks. Now, and reports indicate that they will sell Korean shares worth some $3 billion by July. That's quite a lot.
Right.
Now, what are your thoughts on this? And tell our viewers about the fund.
My estimation is, the Vanguard and other global, hedge fund or funds are setting portfolio depending on the benchmark of Korea position. The Korea now belongs to MSCI. According to MSCI index, Korea belongs to emerging market category, and Korea is by and large about 15% of emerging market category. So even though Korea is a super excellent country in the emerging market country, if the room is filled, they have to,
sell the stock,
and then they have to refill the stock. So I think the most reason is, MSCI index and FTSE index. Korea is on the top of the water. So I think the room for the Korea is already filled, and they had to sell Korean stock, not just because of any specific issues. While in general, Korean economy is performing well, and Korea has been enjoying surplus almost 36 months in a row, actually. Very strong in the fiscal status.
So the fundamentals are fine, and the companies are doing great. It's just the technicality of this
I think it was yesterday that Korea could not join again MSCI advanced country index. That has given kind of another impetus to the global fund. They have to reshuffle their portfolio structure.
Okay.
Okay, well, the economy seems to be performing well, apparently, but at the same time, these fluctuations are being reflected in the stock market. What kind of an effect will this have on the local economy in the short and long run?
The fluctuation actually is inevitable because in Korea, in its nature, we are depending on export, and then there is a growing tendency in favor of the safe haven currency and safe haven country, rather than risky emerging market countries, which was reported by Wall Street Journal yesterday, I think. So a lot of global funds are turning their focus to safe haven US dollar and US Treasury bonds, then risky emerging market countries. I think that's for short term, until we see any sign of activation of US exit strategy, I think the Asian country stock and emerging market country stock will have to suffer, lose of their equity values, I think.
All right, we're almost out of time, but I do want to get this question in here. We are in the middle of June now, so halfway into the year, and the Kospi right now stands at 1909. Do you think it'll regain the 2,000 mark within this year, given all the information that we have?
Well, it certainly is depending on the U.S. and then Japan's government's policy, the easing of quantitative easing. That will give strong impetus. But given the situation that U.S. economy has not shown any robust recovery, there's a very strong anticipation that U.S. will continue their quantitative easing until the end of the year. Until then, I think Korean stock can be still supported.
All right, I'll put my money in the market then. All right, thank you, Professor Lee from Hanyang University.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. All right, and now it's time to shift gears and find out what the weather's going to be like. But I heard
the monsoon season.
The monsoon, that's right, the rainy season. It's been pulled forward to about a week, and it's supposed to begin in the central regions. It's the first time in 21 years that the monsoon season is going to begin.
32 years, the last time I checked.
Oh, 32 years.
Right.
Okay.
We'll go to Lee Dami for more on this. So, good morning, Dami.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm reporting live from Gangwon, Incheon, because I heard there is a festival that will be taking place at the Hanwon Temple, which boasts of some 1,600 years or so. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the weather. Now, this morning here in Gangwon, Incheon, we are seeing mostly clear conditions with just partly cloudy skies, and a layer of fog is apparent currently. It is a bit thick in some parts of the area, so please take care on the roads. As for the temperatures, it's nice and mild this morning at about 21 degrees Celsius. However, later in the days, it looks like our highs will be peaking up once again as the rain has let up. Speaking of monsoon season, it looks like this year it will be starting in the central regions a bit early, somewhere around next week. Like Young mentioned, it is the first time in 32 years that the rainy season will be starting in the central regions. So do keep yourselves updated with the forecast. With that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather across the nation. Seoul will be the hottest, with highs soaring up all the way to 29. Daejeon and Daegu will both peak up to 27. Gangneung once again looks coolest at 21. Busan and Gwangju with highs at 25, and Jeju Island at 22 degrees. Tomorrow we will be seeing even higher numbers, as well as some precipitation down in the south, so do be prepared for that. That's all I have for the weather. I'll be back in the latter half.
Off to a countryside village is where a father and daughter head today on Travelers, where they go fishing with their bare hands and experience some fun from the city.
Earlier this week, the Korea International Trade Association co-hosted a trade and investment forum together with the Federation of GCC Chambers. Now, the GCC is the Gulf Cooperation Council. It's the very first time that the two sides held an investment of this kind, a forum of this kind.
That's right, and we had a chance to meet with the Secretary General of the Federation of GCC Chambers, Abdul Rahim Naki. We'll take a look.
The FGCCC is a non-profit economic union established in September 1979 and consists of 6